This happened just a few months ago. As I'm writing this, I work an overnight shift at a warehouse, so my schedule has me sleeping during the day and awake from around 6 o'clock p.m. to 9 or 10 a.m., even on my days off to keep my body clock steady. One night, I finished work at 4 o'clock a.m. and drove home, arriving around 4:15. The roads were deserted, but as I approached my house, I noticed a car parked right beside my driveway. It was an old black sedan with dark-tinted windows, impossible to see through, and its lights were off. I slowed as I passed, eyeing it cautiously, then pulled into my garage. Before heading inside, I glanced back at the car. My neighborhood has plenty of space between houses, so parking right next to my driveway seemed odd when there were plenty of open spots along the street. I brushed it off, thinking maybe someone was visiting a neighbor, perhaps for a late-night gathering, and their closer spots were taken. An hour later, I checked the window again, and the car was gone. The day passed normally. I slept until 6 o'clock p.m., got ready for work, and left. The car wasn't there when I pulled out of the driveway, so I didn't give it another thought. Work that night was exhausting, but I was looking forward to my night off. When I got home around 4:15 a.m., there it was again, the same black sedan, parked in the exact same spot. I did the same as before, slowing down to peer at the windows, but saw nothing. This time, after parking, I walked to the end of my driveway for a closer look. As I approached, I thought I caught a flicker of movement inside the car, just out of the corner of my eye. It could have been a reflection, but it unnerved me. I stayed about 10 feet away, not wanting to get too close, especially if someone was inside. Still, I couldn't make out anything. Just to be safe, I snapped a photo of the license plate in case this became a pattern, then went inside. Later I checked again, and the car was gone. It was weird, but since it wasn't causing any harm, I let it go. I made dinner, watched TV, and went to bed, sleeping until 6 or 7 p.m. That evening, with the night off, I went for my usual long walk around the neighborhood. The car wasn't there when I left, but when I returned after an hour, there it was again, in the same spot. I'd only seen a couple of other cars parked in the entire neighborhood, so why was this one always by my house, and only at night? Curiosity got the better of me. I walked right up to the window, cupping my hands to block the glare and peer inside. The car was empty. No people, no clues about why it was there. It was strange, but not exactly threatening, so I wasn't sure what to do. Back inside, I grabbed my phone from the nightstand where it had been charging during my walk. A notification caught my eye. A motion alert from one of my security cameras. I have a camera on my front porch, facing the door, and 3 inside the house covering the main rooms. The alert didn't say which camera triggered, so I opened the app to check. The 60-second clip showed nothing for most of it, just my quiet house. But in the last 5 seconds, something moved across the bottom of the frame. It was fast, just a glimpse of a head and shoulders. The footage was from the camera in my bedroom where I was standing. My hands went cold as I gripped the phone. The silence in the house felt suffocating, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I scanned the room, panic rising. Someone could be here watching me. My mind raced, and I knew I had to get out. As I hurried toward the door, I heard movement behind me from the bedroom. Footsteps charged down the hallway, maybe 15 feet away. I bolted through the front door and sprinted into the woods, not daring to look back, focused only on escape. This happened 4 years ago, but it still haunts me from time to time. It was a stormy night, the kind that keeps people indoors. I was an Uber driver, and on nights like these, business was slow. Sometimes I'd go hours without a single ride, but I'd stay out anyway, either cruising around with music or parked in an empty lot watching videos on my phone. Even a few rides made it worth the extra cash. That night, as expected, the streets were dead. I sat in a parking lot, scrolling my phone, the storm raging outside. After an hour, I grabbed some drive-through food and returned to wait. Eventually, a ride request popped up, 25 minutes away, with a drop-off 20 minutes further. It was far, but with no other drivers around, I was likely the closest option. With nothing else to do, I accepted and started driving. The drive felt endless, maybe because of the storm or the empty roads. It was like I was heading nowhere, down unfamiliar roads lined with nothing but trees and fields. I almost forgot I was picking someone up. It felt like aimless driving. After about 35 minutes, I reached the pinpointed location, a corner of 2 roads in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by empty fields. No one was there. I confirmed my arrival on the app, scanning the area, wondering why anyone would be out here in this weather. A minute later, I glanced at my side mirror and saw someone approaching my car. They opened the door and slid in, soaked from the rain. I hadn't seen them on the road or near the trees. They just appeared. The man looked disturbed, almost angry. "You ordered the Uber?" I asked. He replied with my first name, confirming he was my passenger. I started driving, but something felt off. He sat in the middle of the back seat, right in my rearview mirror's line of sight. His vibe was unsettling, like he was hiding something. I wanted to ask why he was out here in the storm, but I hesitated, not wanting trouble. As we drove deeper into even more desolate areas, I decided to break the tension. "So, what brings you out here in this weather?" I asked, keeping my tone friendly. I glanced in the mirror. His eyes flicked away, avoiding mine. He seemed about to speak but stayed silent, looking suspicious. That didn't ease my nerves. Worse, he started acting restless, glancing around and watching me in the mirror. With the rain pounding the windshield, I couldn't keep an eye on him, which made it worse. Suddenly, he spoke. "Drop me off here." Confused, I started to ask if he was sure, but he cut me off, repeating, "Drop me off here," more forcefully. Something was wrong, and I wanted no part of it. I pulled over. As he moved to leave, I noticed him glance at my phone on the center console, the Uber app open. He paused, pulled out his own phone, and checked something. In that moment, I realized he was thinking about the app having his info, his name, everything. If he was up to something, he knew I was suspicious, and it could be traced back to him. Trying to defuse the situation, I said, "Don't worry, I'll cancel the ride on my end. It won't charge you." I hoped he'd think his info would be erased or that I wasn't on to him. He glared at me, his eyes cold and intense. Then, after a tense pause, he got out and vanished into the foggy rain. I drove off immediately, not giving him a chance to reconsider. Though I had no solid proof, I reported his behavior to the police. You can't be too careful. Days later, I got a chilling call. Someone had gone missing that night, last seen near the forest by the road where I'd picked him up. The police asked for details, but despite my account, they found nothing. The storm likely washed away any tracks or evidence. Neither the missing person nor the man I drove was ever found. I was the last to see him. It was early April, and the rain was relentless. I thought it would be a typical weekday, but it turned out to be anything but. My job splits time between indoor and outdoor work, so rainy days like this one were exhausting. By the time my shift ended at 6 o'clock p.m., I was drained. I drove 30 minutes through the downpour to my rural home, tucked away from town. As I pulled down my muddy driveway, I noticed fresh tire tracks. Another vehicle had been there recently. I figured it was the mail truck or a delivery, but when I checked, there was no mail or packages. Odd, but the tracks showed a 3-point turn, so I assumed someone took a wrong turn and left. Inside, I peeled off my soaked work clothes and threw together a quick dinner. Around 7:30 p.m., I thought I heard a faint knock near the front door, just one soft tap, hard to make out over the rain. I got up from the living room where I was watching TV and scrolling on my phone and checked the door. Opening it, I was hit with wind and rain, but no one was there. I scanned the porch for a moment before closing the door to stay dry. Probably nothing, I told myself, and returned to the couch. An hour later, I got up to use the bathroom and noticed something strange, a smudge of mud on the white tile floor, right behind the couch. I hadn't worn shoes inside, especially not muddy ones, and I hadn't seen it earlier. The couch faced the TV on the far wall, so I wouldn't have noticed anything behind me. I wiped it up with a rag, but it left me uneasy. It felt like one of those random things you shrug off, but the idea that someone else might have been in the house crept into my mind. I pushed it aside as paranoia and went back to my show. Still, the feeling lingered. I kept glancing over my shoulder like I was being watched. With the couches set up, the entire first floor was behind me, and it started to feel exposed. A vent. Yuli, I couldn't take it. I turned off the TV and went upstairs to my bedroom where I could sit with my back against the wall and feel safer. I had a small TV there, so I continued my night, trying to relax. About 20 minutes later, just as I was calming down, I heard a muffled thump outside my bedroom door, maybe a footstep or something hitting the wall. My stomach dropped. I crept to the door, pressed my ear against it, and listened. Silence. I stood there, psyching myself up to open it, knowing I had to check to ease my mind. I cracked the door and peered down the empty, quiet hallway. To sleep soundly, I needed to check the house. The only other room upstairs was a rarely used spare room, set up as a library and office. As I started toward it, the TV downstairs blared to life, playing the show I'd been watching at full volume. My heart pounded as I sprinted downstairs. The first floor was dark except for the TV's flickering light. I rounded the corner into the living room, expecting anything, but it was empty. Cautiously, I approached the TV, scanning the room, and turned it off with the button on the back. Was this a glitch, or was something going on? The night's odd events, tracks, mud, the knock, were adding up. I grabbed a kitchen knife and searched the first floor, room by room. Nothing seemed out of place. By the time I headed back upstairs, I was almost convinced it was all a string of coincidences. I reached the spare room and eased the door open. Everything looked normal until I spotted something on the floor by the closet. The downstairs TV remote. My blood ran cold. I backed out, bolted downstairs, and ran outside, calling the police as I went. When they arrived, they found a broken lock on a downstairs window. Someone had likely visited earlier, probably driving down my driveway and knocking to check if I was home. When I wasn't, they left, only to return and break in. They were inside all evening, moving silently, possibly watching me,